Hello there, YouTube. My name's AlphaAnton, and today we're going to be taking a look at controller response curves and why I believe they're actually very misunderstood. Now, as a quick TLDR, if you're here just to see what I believe they look like, I don't believe they look like this or this. From the testing and the mapping out of the curves that I've done, I believe they actually look something like this. Now, if by the end of this video, if you learned something new, find it helpful, please do me a favor and leave me a like and maybe consider subscribing as well. And before we go into discussing why I decided to try and figure this out and the method that I use to actually test it, leave me a comment down below. Tell me what curve you use and why you use it. Now, as a quick background as to why I decided to do this, I was a mouse and keyboard player for the longest time. Been playing Counter-Strike since the early days, played Valorant at a high level, Rainbow Six Siege, and also played Counter-Strike competitively as well. I've never really been a big fan of Call of Duty, but decided to switch over into Warzone mid-season 6. At some point through the last couple of seasons, I decided to take up controller because most of the players that play Warzone play on controller, and I wanted to sort of understand the input and the differences between the two. It's just something to do with like my thought process behind things. I like to try to experience everything. You know, when you see mouse and keyboard players complain about aim assist, and I like to think of things a bit more analytically. And there are some differences between the inputs that I don't think people really truly understand. And is one of the reasons why I actually want to stick to playing controller and get better at playing controller as well. But that's for another video. We can talk about that if you're interested. Let me know in the comments as well. But that leads me as to why I've decided to map these out. Coming from mouse and keyboard, I figured the best thing to do was make things as simple as possible. Take out some extra variables, because on mouse and keyboard, you really don't want things like mouse acceleration, crosshair smoothing, all that sort of crap that would like just be an extra thing your brain had to calculate. So because of this, I thought linear curve would be the best for me, because building muscle memory is very important. And I found it very strange that not many people were using linear. Most people were using dynamic, and some people were still using standard. Now, what our understanding of linear is supposed to be, if you push your thumbstick, say 10%, you're going to get 10% of the speed. You push it 25%, you're going to get 25% of the speed. You push it 100%, you get 100% of the speed. So I took this information and I wanted to try and get my controller working on AimLabs, which is an aim training software on Steam or on PC. Now, I have ADHD and a bit of OCD. So when I came up with this idea of doing this, I kind of got obsessed with it and really attached myself to it, and I just couldn't let it go. Every time I thought I had this figured out, it just didn't feel right. So what I would do is I would get the maximum speed for my sensitivity in Warzone, match that to the same sensitivity in AimLabs, but then when I started to try and use the aim trainer, it felt way off. It felt too responsive. And I just couldn't figure out why. I started playing around with it because in Steam, you can actually change the like response curves manually. And I made it look a bit more like a standard curve, and it started to feel like a lot like linear in Warzone. Now, it may not matter to you, but this was a big deal to me because I really wanted to do some training and try and build up some muscle memory on a software where you can actually like monitor your progress, keep statistics, all that sort of thing. Now, because of this, I needed to figure out a way of actually being able to determine what the curve looked like. And I found this website called Gamepad Tester. And what this website does is it actually shows your inputs and it gives you some real-time data for what you're actually doing. Now, as you can see here, it shows you very accurately where your thumbstick is. And it's also very good for showing you like dead zone and that sort of thing. As you can see there, my dead zone's sitting at about 0.05. Just a little bit over that. So what I did with this website is I used the data from the x-axis, or axis 2, and it basically worked as a percentage from 0 to 100%. I used this as a bit of an overlay on my OBS, on my recording, jumped into a private lobby on Modern Warfare, and I basically just started doing 360-degree turns. So I'd start off, I didn't do it at 5%, because 5% would have taken me about 3 days just to do one bloody turn. And holding the stick for that long was very hard to do without moving it, especially because I have extra thumbstick tension on my controller. So I started off at 10%, worked up in 5% increments, went 10, 15, 20, etc. And at the end, once I'd actually finished the recording, I'd take it into my editing software and snip each of the 360-degree turns and calculate how long it took to do that 360-degree turn. Now, the issue with doing it this way is I'm recording at 60 FPS, because at the higher speeds, you're actually turning faster than 360 degrees in 1 second, and you only got 60 frames to capture that. So you couldn't quite get it right on the 360-degree mark, so you had to kind of like guess a little bit. But for the early range, for the first like 50%, it was very accurate. And I'll leave a link below in the description of the actual spreadsheet that I used to calculate all of this. So just with a bit of quick maths, with 360 degrees divided by the time it took to do that, and that worked out our degrees per second. I then used that data to then map it out on this graph. We had degrees per second, and then the amount of thumbstick push we had, which was like 5 to 100%. So that's how I figured it out, and I believe that's actually a pretty correct way of looking at it. But that now brings us to what the curves actually look like, and what the hell. So we can see here by the red line, linear is actually nothing like linear as far as what we understood. It just seems to be a stronger standard curve. If you look at the degrees per second, you'll see it does roughly like 10 degrees per second at like a 10% push, whereas standard's like 3.5 degrees per second. Now, the most interesting thing I found was with dynamic. It started off just a little bit more responsive than than linear, but the curve started a lot later. So it started off responsive, smoothed out, and then ramped up pretty strong at the end. And this is why I believe people really like this, and why more people use it as opposed to like linear and standard. You have that responsiveness early, it smooths out, so you actually have a much easier time with your sort of stronger flicks, that sort of thing. Because the difference between, say, 50 and 65% of a stick push isn't that much as far as speed goes. As opposed to linear or standard, it's far stronger. So if you move your stick, say, 50% one time to try and do a flick, but you accidentally move it, say 65% the next time, because it's pretty easy to do that, you might overshoot the shot. So I'm not sure if that actually made sense the way I explained it there, but that is why I believe people use dynamic more. It seems to be really responsive early and just more consistent towards the mid to late range of the thumbstick push. And then you also have the high end of like the 100% where you can push it all the way and still get your quick turns. Now, I'd love to know in the comment section what you think. Do you agree with the way that I've actually done these calculations? Do you find this interesting? Do you believe you already knew all this? And do you think it will change anything as far as what you use? Me personally, I probably will use dynamic. I might start using that. And because of this, I've been able to figure out a way of getting this to work on aim labs. And I'm going to start practicing. And if I can get it working correctly and make it into a bit of a guide, would you be interested? Anyway, that brings us to the end of the video. Again, if you found this helpful in any way, please leave me a like, drop me a comment down below, and subscribe for future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.